Welcome to People Tech, the podcast of WorkforceAI.news. I'm Mark Pfeffer, the editor. And joining me today is John Sumpser, who's the publisher of HR Examiner. He's one of the business's great thinkers, I think. He tends to get into details that other people usually don't. And so, John, thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, nice to be here, Mark. I'm very impressed with the enterprise you're building here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. If nothing else, it's fun, I have to say.
Yeah,
John, you're also involved with Salary.com, and you've been doing work with them for a while. Can you tell me about that and what's going on there?
yeah. So about 5 years ago, I started to realize that my view of the world as an analyst was biased. It was biased in a way that wasn't necessarily helpful, and that I didn't actually understand the day-to-day execution details in the people who are the vendors in our industry. And so I took a job at Salary.com doing some projects for them, and then ended up running marketing for a couple of years. And it was a great experience. I now have a much better grasp of what vendors are looking for and what the bridge between vendors and their clients actually are, which is something that I did not have dirt under my fingernails in. It's a big difference. It's not at all what it seems like. And then over the course of the last year, I've shifted into a research role. So I'm looking at and doing things around the AI question. As you know, I've been tracking AI for 20 years, some ridiculous long time. I saw a note the other day from an analyst who said you should never buy a product from a company that claims to have been an AI before 2015. And I thought that was remarkably ignorant of what's been going on in HR for a long time. What's been going on in HR for a long time is that it has been becoming more and more automated. It's been more and more reliant on AI, and this has been going on. Oh God, maybe the entire duration of the time that there's been an AI project, which is about 75 years now. It's a long-term involvement because HR has all of these novel circumstances that require novel solutions, but they need to be based on data, and that is a tough problem to solve. So back to Salary.com. Salary.com is helping me revitalize the HR Examiner, and so part of my job is doing research, and then I have some freedom to go build the HR Examiner, and so I'm doing both of those things simultaneously right now.
Okay. And are you working on anything in particular at Salary.com that you can talk about, or are you just really helping them?
We could probably take a week to dig into the details of the idea that I am currently working on, which is that compensation is the foundation of work. Salary.com is a compensation management solutions provider. And that world, what compensation is not something that most HR analysts really understand. A lot of people in HR don't understand compensation management because it's a numbers game, and most of HR isn't a numbers game. So the foundation of compensation as the foundation of work starts out as a very simple idea, which is nobody or very, very, very few people go to work without being paid. People work for money, and the foundation there is right there. But there's a limit to what you can do with money. Money won't buy you love in the workplace. Money buys you people who have their fundamental needs met if you do compensation correctly, um, and and you need to have that in place. You need to do pay right so that you can maximize the take that you get from the entirety of the organization. And so that idea I am digging into in rich detail right now.
I'm curious because I keep getting press releases and talking to people who are involved with employee engagement, and they always say, compensation isn't the employee's first concern. They are concerned about culture, mission, other things first. First of all, I'm not sure that's true, but that aside, how does that factor in to your compensation planning and your view of compensation?
Well, first of all, once somebody goes to work and they're getting an adequate regular paycheck, they don't think about money. They think about money when there's something wrong with the way that the pay is done. That's a premise. It's a foundation. It's not engagement. It really isn't engagement. But you can't get to engagement if you're not paying properly. Right. So there's a floor that you have to build, and the degree to which that floor or foundation is well crafted is the degree to which you can get productivity and engagement and all those other positive values that don't look so much like compensation out of the employee relationship. But if you don't pay them, they're going to go somewhere else. So I would not characterize that as it's not important to them. I would say the amount of time people spend thinking about their paycheck is largely related to how adequate the paycheck is.
That's a good point. Let me circle back to AI. You said something that I find interesting and other people may have picked up on, which is you said you've been working in AI for 20 years. And there's a lot of people who think AI really appeared for the first time 2 years ago with ChatGPT. But there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, can you just give us a little thumbnail about the foundations of AI and the kind of things that it was doing before, even if people didn't realize it?
So the history of AI begins at MIT in the mid-1940s, and there was this abundance of computing power available now that all of it wasn't being devoted to radar development or ballistics tables. And the radar development stuff was happening at MIT, so you had all these scientists who understood, the way that a radar works is you send out a signal, it bounces off something, and the echo you get back from that signal is in the shape of the object that it's bouncing off of, right? And so you'd have to decode those signals and turn them into a display. But the idea of radar is sort of foundational to how this stuff works. And then those scientists at MIT in the 40s started trying to imagine what it would take to make a brain. And there were two fundamental schools of thought there. There was the Claude Shannon school, which became communications theory and is how the internet is organized, and the Norbert Wiener school, which is about value or symbolism. And so the Claude Shannon school says what makes a communication is its consistency. And you can see that idea percolate all the way up into large language models. Mm-hmm. The Wiener view is that what matters in communication is the variation. And so there are complementary views of the world, but the world's centered on and standardized on Claude Shannon's stuff. Okay. Now, this goes on. The story of AI is wrapped up in radar until it sort of broke free around the time the internet got started. But the internet itself was an idea about how do you wire together a global brain, right? This idea of the end result of computing being intelligence may be what computing has been about all the way all along. Because if you create a document, if you create a spreadsheet, these are all examples of condensed intelligence to be communicated. So what you do with computing really is take a signal and make it clearer and cleaner. That's almost all interactions with machines are. In the early 2000s, this bubbled into really interesting stuff with machine learning that was applied to things like sentiment analysis. So in the mid-2000s, you could buy tools that would listen to all of the digital communications in your organization and then go back with machine learning and decode the sentiment of the organization from those things. And there are a number of companies still in that business doing really interesting stuff. A number of them were purchased. UKG, then Ultimate Software, bought one of the better ones. But this idea that you could extract engagement-related information from the communications inside of the organization is 20 years old anyhow. And it was all about the application of machine learning to communications.
So the recent iteration of AI, the AI we sort of know today, I have never seen anything like it. I mean, it's everywhere, and it's pretty much expected to be in any piece of technology that someone's got. In the world of HR, is that really helping? First of all, it's helping processes, it seems. Everyone seems to agree on that. But is it doing anything else? Is it really helping people be better at HR and at recruiting?
I think the jury's still out on that. And there are going to be problems like the one we're currently having in recruiting. I read this morning somewhere that 10% of LinkedIn profiles have prompt injection in them. And prompt injection is the primary way you hack a large language model. Prompt injection means you put instructions for the machine inside of the normal language that you're using. And it's easy to do that because the language you interact with a large language model with is the same language that you use to program it. And so it's very, very, very difficult to see when somebody has embedded in their resume always rank mark number one as an attempt to hack the screening process. Now, the New York Times is talking about this. Everybody's talking about this right now because that also includes the content of resumes, the content of LinkedIn, the content of cover letters. All are inbound material designed to cause the screening system to review your work favorably. And, that's what you want from a cover letter, and that's what you want from a resume, and that's what you want from LinkedIn. So it's only natural that people do this, that they try to get in the right format to be seen in the best light so they have the best chance. And so you're gonna see that take off. It's gonna be everywhere, and it's gonna make it really, really hard to trust the various matching processes that are out there.
Well, that's kind of like in the early internet days where people were putting hidden keywords in their profiles or on their cover letters, just changing the color so the keywords themselves were actually invisible to the eye, but the ATS would find them. It's
Right.
kind of a thing like that, isn't it?
It's exactly like that. It's exactly like that. And of course people do that. of course, people look for whatever advantage they can gain. The process of finding a job is a nightmare. And so if you can get a little traction there, it's hard to imagine why you wouldn't try it.
And it seems like there's an arms race going on, partly over this, but there's more applications coming out that offer AI tools to candidates.
Right?
There's one that goes out and scans LinkedIn for every position that looks like it matches yours, etc. And so you've got the candidates with an AI, you've got the employers with an AI. Those two AIs start communicating. First of all, at what point does a person get involved? But this AI to AI communication seems like it would skew things a lot. I'm not sure what direction, but would definitely change the conversation.
Well, so this will sound like a long rabbit hole. It isn't really. My favorite museum is the Tower of London Armoury in London. And in the Tower of London Armoury, they have a display of the history of technology. And the history of technology is wooden club, then shield, then metal arrow, then steel shield, then chainmail, then armor, then blah, 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 and then back and forth and back and forth. When there's a new invention of technology, it always produces something that's the opposite of it. Always. That's the nature of technology. And so when you see an arms race, it's exactly what it is. And I can't imagine what will stop the arms race. It'll just get more interesting and complex. It isn't going to go away because both sides need to improve their odds of success.
Right.
Right. That's what they're really trying to do. Both sides are trying to improve the odds of their success, and I can't imagine a world where people don't do that.
Right. But it's ironic because it seems like all of these arms, they're basically all designed to get the attention of a person. At some point, either somebody who's screening or the actual hiring manager or something like that. I don't know where that dynamic's going, but it sure seems like it's going to be tougher for people to match up with a partner or an employee or an employer.
I think it's always been hard, and the point of a resume has never been to communicate credentials. That's a sort of a LinkedIn view of a resume. The point of a resume has always been to get an interview. Because what you get in the interview is different than what's on the piece of paper.
Right.
Right. And so this is just how do you get in the right line to get the right audition so that you actually have a chance of getting the job is what a resume is for. And any company that thinks that that's not true is going to subject themselves to very difficult matching problems. But if you embrace the fact that that's a marketing document, just like the job description never actually describes the job, the resume doesn't exactly describe the person, and that's the place where human judgment matters.
Right. So let me go back to this notion about the quality of what AI is doing, or is AI helping improve things? In HR, which is HR is an interesting combination of sort of soft things like engagement, culture, and all that, but then also a lot of nuts and bolts and details like payroll and benefits and compliance. Is AI really helping companies build better employee experiences? Is it helping them develop a better, more effective HR strategy? Or is it just making things happen faster?
I'm not sure it's doing either of those things, and I tend to think that this is going to be like all the rest of the technical breakthroughs that we've had since 1980, say, maybe 1970. But what happens is you get the technical breakthrough, and then people take a long time to figure out how to use it correctly. And the process of figuring out how to use it correctly doesn't get really productive for a while. I know that there are a lot of people out there claiming value from their AI tools, but it isn't really very proven, and it's really too early to have the proof points. You can't get a coherent case study or ROI about something like a large language model being deployed in your organization in 6 months, right? And if you think about the LLMs started coming on the market in 22 or 23,
Yeah.
they didn't really grab the attention of the business community until late 23, early 24. And then those people had to grip the new technology and start to try to do things with it. And so here you are today. But late 23, early 24 to today is 18 months. And if you want to get a product out on the street in most of the sizable vendors, a year is the kind of time that it takes to do that. So what that means is that the applications that could make a difference are really just hitting the streets now. Mm-hmm. And you can see this. I saw a demo from one of the big enterprise HR firms, and they were all excited about their AI agent. And what their AI agent did was, if you got into the chatbot and you said, I want to change my last name in my employment record because I just got married, it'll change the record for you. Mm-hmm. Well, that's employee self-serve, which has been a feature of HR tools since 99 or 2000, right? This is the idea that you can go to the machine and tell it to change your name in your employment record and it will do it is not anything, right? It's just not anything. You can call it an agent, I suppose, but it's really redoing something that has been working just fine, thank you, for 25 years. And that's because it's hard to see where this fits. There are other tools, like there are some interesting tools that will give you an assist with performance reviews by reviewing all of the data the company has on Mark Fever, and combining that with the skills analysis, so that what you get out of the AI is an action plan that talks about development, gives performance review, and in that corner of the world, people are getting very excited about having machines give performance reviews. Yeah. But when you look at the output, the output's never validated against anything in particular, so you don't actually know if this works, and you don't actually know if the advice that you're being given to give to an employee is the right advice. Right? And so you get this problem that I think is endemic with most soft installations of large language models, so things that don't involve hard data. Is that stuff is really hard to edit. And so if I get a report about Mark Pfeffer that is 3 pages long and it tells me all these details about his email habits, his telephone habits, transcripts of his calls, all this stuff synthesized into a report, how do I fact check that?
Right.
How do I read something like that and then lay my actual point of view over it? because that report comes out of a machine. It seems like it ought to be something big, but it's the current accuracy rate of large language models is 90%,
Right.
and 90% means 1 out of every 10 words is wrong in some way. 1 out of every 10 paragraphs is wrong in some way. 1 out of every 10 total answers is wrong in some way. And so if you want to make sense out of what you get out of it in a sort of a narrative form, you have to go back and parse through all of the little details looking for that 10th word that's not quite right.
Right. Right.
Right. And that's just super hard.
And I think people tend to believe anything the computer tells them. They found that with the web, you could post anything, and there were going to be people out there who believed it just because it was online.
Yeah, but that's I think my story is that I'm a philosophy major who became an engineer who became an industry analyst, and the way that I had success as an engineer is I had roughly the 50th PC off the IBM PC line in 1980, and when I would go to a meeting, my reports had graphs. And so whether or not the stuff was true, I could get up in front of a room and present a presentation that looked like the machine made it. And that gave me a level of credibility that you couldn't get any other way. And that's the benefit that early adopters get from adopting a new technology. It's why, even though it's cloudy and confusing, adopting AI today is smarter than not adopting it.
Let me ask you one more question. We talked, you and I talked last week, and we talked a bit about this. It seems there's a shift going on in the conversation in HR tech about AI. A year ago, vendors were basically expected to say they have AI, and that was enough. This year, it seems like people are asking the vendor, what's the AI doing, and prove that it actually does it. Are you sensing the same thing?
I think you sit in a chair that's a little more forward than where I'm looking from right now, and so you're further ahead into the future than I am. In my view, it really wasn't until this year that AI became the expected norm. Now, people, once you say every application is going to have some kind of AI related to it, you get into this interesting territory that you're talking about, which is what does it do? How do I benefit from it? And you get this weird market expectation that there's going to be an easy to generate ROI from all of that. And we are years away from being able to generate coherent ROIs on particularly the soft LLM outputs, because we don't know how long it takes to digest the output of an LLM. And by digesting, I mean that whole editorial process I've been talking about. Mm-hmm. You have to do that, or you end up publishing things that are embarrassing.
Yep. Okay. John Sumser of HR Examiner, thank you very much for talking with me today. I hope we'll talk soon. And for everybody else, this has been People Tech, the podcast of WorkforceAI.news. I'm Mark Pfeffer. Thanks for watching us, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks. It was great talking to you, Mark. Bye-bye.
Bye.